Mercedes is struggling to overcome the porpoising issues that have plagued the W13 since the start of the season, leaving the team unable to compete with Ferrari and Red Bull. While the team continues to seek answers, it sees the next Formula One race in Barcelona as a critical moment in determining its next steps. After running at the track in pre-season testing with its standard Cypod launch spec, the Spanish GP will provide an excellent opportunity to compare the behavior and potential of the various concepts. And with little progress so far this year, Mercedes believes a decision must be made soon on whether to stick with the zero-pod solution or try something new. When asked if it could rule out reverting to the launch spec philosophy if Barcelona demonstrates that's the way to go, Wolff said, "Well, I wouldn't discount anything, but we need to give all our people benefit of the doubt. They have produced great race cars in the past, and we believe that this is the route to go. Barcelona is definitely going to be a point in time where we are able to correlate with what we saw in February and gather more data. I'm also annoyed about saying the same thing about gathering data and making experiments, but it's physics and not mystics, and therefore, you have to unpick the data." What Mercedes needs to learn from the Spanish Grand Prix weekend is whether the theoretical performance advantages of the current zero-pod solution can be realized in practice. Having data from running there as opposed to testing will allow it to better understand whether the old concept, which in theory produces less downforce, is actually better in the real world. The focus is shifting to the possibility that Mercedes' zero-pod concept may have had unintended consequences by exposing more of the floor, making the car more susceptible to porpoising. Wolff said, "If you walk through the grid, you can see that our floor edges stick out much wider than anybody else's. That gives it a different way, or much more scope, of possible instability. I think that's where our concept varies. Clearly the Barcelona launch car is much slower on paper, but we need to find out how we can make the current car work predictably for the drivers." While Mercedes does not yet know the answer, Wolff is clear that after Barcelona, the team must make a decision on which direction it will take in the future. "I think we are still committed to the current concept, and you need to be. If you don't believe and you give the other one a 50% chance, then you've got to switch now. We are faithful to the current concept. We are not looking at the lady next door to see if we like it more or not. It's still good. As a matter of fact, we need to understand, before you make a decision to switch to another concept, where did one go wrong? And what is the goodness of the concept and what is the badness of the concept? That is a question you can only respond to yourself. I would be asking ourselves to get an answer after Barcelona, because that's the real correlation we have. And by then, we will look at ourselves in the mirror and say, did we get it wrong or not? The German automaker brought several updates to the Miami event, including a revised front wing end plate and a low downforce rear wing package. These changes helped George Russell place second in practice on Friday, when the team had its most competitive day of the season so far, despite the fact that Mercedes' setup choices for Saturday caused it to drop down the order, with Lewis Hamilton finishing 6th on the grid. Team boss Toto Wolff expressed some optimism about the team's progress, and, after remaining confident in its belief that the W13 concept would perform once the team got on top of the bouncing, he remained steadfast that Miami proved the team was correct to keep its faith in it. When asked when Mercedes would abandon the idea and focus on next year, Wolff replied, "We believe that our concept has the potential for us to race at the front, but it is also a sensitive concept. Once it's in the window, it can function very well. But it's very difficult to get it in that window, because of the floor, obviously being much more exposed than other cars. We are still believing in that direction, that it's right, and we'll have another set of data in the race and in Barcelona, which will be good for correlation work from the test with our launch car. Then comes the moment where we have to decide what we will do for next year. But it doesn't work to say you're writing off one season to concentrate on the next, because it's the same regulations. I just think our understanding grows every day. We've already said this is another experimental weekend. Friday was good. Saturday was not. The team's form this year has been hampered by the extreme porpoising that has plagued the W13. While there was more bouncing on Friday, Wolff said that the change in setup that caused it has improved their understanding of what turns the phenomenon on and off. On Friday, we had a glimpse of performance from the car if we get it in the right spot. The main thing was, again, managing the porpoising, and that was good on Friday. Then we tried something that didn't seem like a big change and affected the car badly and put us all the way back. At the end in qualifying, the drivers suffered again with the bouncing, and the bouncing has such an effect on the braking zones and what the tyres are doing, with the consequence that we're ending up in 6th and 12th. The learning is exponentially tough at the moment, but we would have hoped for better. Mercedes tried a different setup on Russell's car in final practice before reverting to the previous configuration for qualifying, only for him to finish 12th in Q2. Russell's best qualifying lap was 0.2 of a second slower than his best FP2 lap. This is how Russell puts it: "It's definitely a surprise, but after driving the car and experiencing how it felt, it's no surprise. Today it felt like a totally different beast. We had loads of porpoising today, and we don't really understand why. And ultimately, that was the difficulty. It's the first time I've ever felt it all the way through a corner. Through turn 4 and 5, it was just bouncing through it all. And then it's all in the braking zones. It's a shame because I was slower on Saturday than I was on Friday, and everyone else went 1 second quicker." Russell also struggled with the lack of rear stability on his car, which remained despite a backtracking on the setup change in FP3, but cited the porpoising as its biggest issue that kept him out of Q3. "The rear of the car is hopping around, and you just don't have any support or stability in the rear. Yesterday we were flying through Sector 1 and had so much confidence in the car. And suddenly, as I said, totally different beast today. It makes sense from within the car, but we don't really understand why it's so different." Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, advanced to Q3, qualifying 6th behind the Ferrari and Red Bull cars, as well as Valtteri Bottas's Alfa Romeo. Hamilton admitted that Mercedes qualifying had been a little confusing with Friday's pace, and that the team was still unsure why its performance seemed exaggerated in FP3. "Today was a bit of a surprise to see in FP3. We were quite far back." Hamilton was also cautious about reading too much into Mercedes' pace, saying that while the car feels similar with the updates, team feedback had been positive, so it was a bit nerve-wracking going into qualifying. "We've not really taken a step forward or anything, but we've just got to keep on working. We seem to be quicker here." And later on they kind of explained to us that we definitely have improved in some way. "I'm not sure where that is, but we still have the bouncing, so we haven't cured it. But I think just bit by bit with improving the car." Russell also cautioned against getting too excited about Mercedes' pace, admitting that he had no idea why he had been so quick out of the gate. "I don't really understand it, to be honest, why we hit the ground running. We always knew ahead of this weekend that the conditions should suit us better, because we've been struggling a lot with tyre warm-up, even in Bahrain when the track was really tough. But this is the first real hot race of the season, so for sure that's played a factor. The car's working well, but it's only Friday, so not getting carried away." While the team appears to have taken a step forward in Miami, they are unsure how it happened. Nonetheless, Barcelona will be a critical Grand Prix for the Silver Arrows, as it will allow them to compare their old and new spec cars on the same track to determine the team's next course of action. What are your thoughts on Mercedes' performance in Miami? Is it a sign of hope for the team, or is it leaving them more perplexed than ever? Is their zero side pod concept the source of their problems? We'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.